Past the Wire TV, your #1 source for horse racing news and interviews, handicapping analysis, betting insights, and more. Past the Wire TV covers the biggest races at the best tracks.
Garnet and Luis Saez to win the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga. The Grey Wizard is absolutely flying. Champagne won. The Grey Wizard. Oh, it's very close. Leave it to the judge.
Like, share, and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.
Hey, Sure Bet Coffee. Put that giddy up in your cup. That giddy up in your cup. Sure Bet Coffee.
Tracking trips have passed the wire. There is no better time than now to join and ride with this clan. We'll be your second set of expert trained eyes. We ain't gonna buy you a fish. Sure, we'll give you some, but more importantly, we'll show you how to fish and make you a better bettor. CAWs, sharks in the water, no problem. We'll go against anybody, and we have the track record to prove it. Big days, big pools, and select days all year long. We'll outplay them all. Looking for an ace? You're in the right place. Want to find that diamond? Be with us. Want to know more? Just ask a member or visit us at pastthewire.com and check out the Tracking Trips page. Nobody does it better.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Ciao tutti, everybody.
Ciao tutti.
How goes it?
Happy to be here. Delighted as always.
Black Friday at Churchill Downs. We're going to take a look at those two stakes. Thanksgiving a little, I guess, late this year, right? It's usually like the 24th. This year it's the 26th. It's a little behind schedule, but we're not. We're right on schedule with a nice early preview of two stake races. Both, in my opinion, competitive. I'm curious to see what you gentlemen think. But I will say this. I was thinking about the clock. The clock used to be a really big race, and it still is a nice race. But, coming timing-wise where it comes after the Breeders' Cup, the first thing that struck me is, you know what? It's a nice race if you want to avoid the Breeders' Cup Classic, and you're not quite good enough or, fast enough to run with the heavy hitters. It's a decent alternative.
Yeah, I think actually there's a lot on the line in this race, which I'll mention in a little bit when we start going through it. But I think this could be a key race for the kind of capping the year in thoroughbred racing. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that when I bring it up in a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good. And we'll go a little shorter on the Miss Revere and kind of just hit on our bullet points and who we may like or who we may not like and why. But the clock will run down the whole field and do one of our more Geo Sette-like deep dives and dissect that race a little bit and see where we land. So if you guys are ready, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right. Jim, lead off.
All right, yeah. So in the 10th race, I landed on Kehoe Beach. I think she is going to set the pace and be lone speed and run away from them late. I thought the last two races of hers were pretty impressive. Obviously she's going to be stepping up into stakes company here, but I think she sets the pace. And according to her late pace figures on Brisnet, which if you've watched the channel for any length of time, is a key indicator for me. She fits in there on the Brisnet, and she fits in there on the Equibase Race Lens, which, again, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know that we like it. I like it. Charles likes it. And then the big thing, too, for me was just the class ratings on Brisnet, especially on the turf, which I think is another key factor that I look for. Kehoe Beach tops in current class and tops in the average class over the last 3. So I think she's quick enough to get the lead, set the pace, and also has the stamina to run away from them late. So I landed on her, and will most likely be a single for me in my multis.
Interesting, confident. Geo, I'll let you go second, but I will add a couple of things and ask you a question about Kehoe Beach. Any concern about Wesley Ward and I don't know, rumor or perception that he's not quite as good going around the ground as he is with these sprinting types?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. And
I don't have that concern. So
yeah,
I'm just curious if you do.
I think perhaps maybe I used to. He was a play against for me a lot at Saratoga, and he made me look silly. So I've kind of gotten off of that sort of, maybe inherent bias that we kind of think. But I think he's in a fine spot here, and I've lost enough going with that angle that I've come off it a little bit in the last couple of months.
And you didn't see other speed to kind of soften her up, huh?
No, I don't think so. I think she runs out and sets it. And, again, looking at the pace projection with Race Lens, they have her all by her lonesome coming to the top of the stretch. And then again, those late pace figures, I think, is enough to hold everybody off.
And interesting, this is something that Gio and I have discussed privately on at least 3 or 4 occasions this year, in races where Frankie Dettori has just capitalized on aggressive turf riding and seizing the lead and saying, you know what, nobody likes to go here in the States. I got no problem with it. And he's out there by 3 winging, and they turn for home, and he's got plenty of gas in the tank, and bye-bye, see you later. So I guess, Frankie goes back a long way with Wesley Ward. If you remember about 5-6 years ago, before he retired and came to the States and unretired, he actually went to Saratoga to ride a meet for Wesley. So they've got some history. And, I would have to say Frankie is a perfecto fit for this filly. Gio, thoughts on Kehoe Beach and thoughts on the race?
Okay, Kehoe Beach, to add to your point, this is the horses. I didn't land on Kehoe Beach, but I wanted to add some thoughts on Kehoe Beach because definitely a contender and will be my main horse in the exacta, but I feel she's going to get caught. So Kehoe Beach, it is the first stakes try, daughter of Omaha Beach. It certainly is a better post, and I absolutely trust Frankie Dettori in this spot. It's extremely likely that the horse is going to have the lead. But remember, the step up in class, first stakes try against fillies who have all gone through their battles in stakes races. There's a lot of good, strong, improving fillies in this race. So who I land on, and I'm going to use Kehoe Beach underneath, I land on the 6, Pin Up Betty. All right? Now, this is a daughter of Constitution, okay? Interestingly enough, Mike Maker, who I've always appreciated all the work he's done with claimers and just his success getting the very best out of horses. Pin Up Betty, 5 races now, turn into a 5th different jockey. BJ Hernandez is up now. So then I start to paint the picture in my head in terms of the trip. Now, there's no doubt that 3 and Frankie's going to be on the lead. I do think today or on Friday, the 3 is going to get some pressure, likely from the 10, 11, and the 4, maybe even Johnny V on the outside. If there's some sort of pace, the fact that Kehoe Beach is stepping up, Pin Up Betty, in my opinion, 2 for 2 on the lawn at Churchill, all right, significantly better as a 3-year-old as compared to her juvenile campaign. I like BJ on this horse. Not that Sayaz or Irad weren't good choices in the prior two. I just think after that grade 1, competitive against She Feels Pretty, who's also having a big campaign and is a high quality filly. I just think in this race, going a mile and a 16th, this is a spot for Pinup Betty to run her best yet. So if Pinup Betty runs her best, I trust BJ Hernandez, she's going to be a threat to run down Keel Beach in a stretch.
Now, I got a question for you, but go ahead. Let me let you finish first, because maybe you'll answer the question before I answer.
With that said, there's one other contender in the race I give respect to. It's Irad on Buchu, who's getting a tremendous amount of class relief. That's the 2. Also proven at the distance. I just don't know if this is the perfect race right now, but the 2 ran with a lot of quality fillies. I mean, look at the last few. She Feels Pretty in that same race. I Scream, You Scream, Cinderella's Dream. But Pinup Betty beat her on the square at Churchill on the turf in the grade 3 Regret. So my order is 6-3, 2, 12, 7. 6-3, 2, 12, 7.
Now, my question for you, Gio, is any concern at all that Luis Saez rode the filly you like last time for Mike Maker, who he rides for a fair share at a time, and stuck with Eddie Keneally's filly Simply in Front, who's a much longer price on the morning line, and who he has been, in all fairness, riding regularly, but he sticks there when he probably had a choice and could have rode the filly that you like?
That's a very good question, John, and I gave it some thought because I'm a big-time Luis Saez fan, and I appreciate all the work he does, and obviously he always rides his mounts through the stretch to the wires there. But the fact that they switched jockeys numerous times on the 6, I just thought that was a pattern, looking for the perfect spot, because you don't see that very often with stakes-type horses. 5 races, 5 different jocks. Sayaz's horse, let me give you my thought on him. Consistent, reliable. I thought he ran a brave race from the 12-hole last time out. He was beaten by 2 in the race. I don't know if the horse wants a mile and a 16th on the lawn. I just had, I had to be decisive. And, I felt like the Louise is going to be a pace factor, but as I looked at the race and I said to myself, how is it going to be won? I just think it's going to be won from off the pace. That's why I landed on a 6. But good question.
Interestingly, because and to me, this is what makes a great handicapping discussion. Jim likes a horse who he thinks is going to go wire to wire. You just made the statement and picked a horse that you think is coming off the pace because the race is going to be won off the pace. And it ties into a couple of things for me. One is the Exacta show that you and I did. 2 long-time seasoned handicappers that have completely different approaches and philosophies in how we bet exactas. We also have a completely different approach and philosophy in handicapping that you illustrated here, and I'll touch on it because it brings me back to our discussion on Arthur's Ride before, I think it was the Whitney, whatever the race he won at Saratoga. What you mentioned about Jim's filly, Kehoe, whatever, I'm sorry, let me say it right. Kehoe Beach, stepping up in class, moving from allowance into stakes races. You kind of downgrade that and go for horses that are proven at a class level. And that was your major knock on Arthur's Ride when I thought he was a contender in the Whitney. And I have the exact opposite approach. I kind of lean towards Jim's philosophy. I like improving horses getting better doing something for the first time and moving into stakes company because we get a better price on them sometimes, so they create a little bit more value and are more likely to be an overlay, although sometimes they're underlays doing that too. But I look for horses to kind of improve and do something that they haven't done, as opposed to just assuming they're going to do or run the same way. And it's just a different philosophy and a different way of looking at it. And the other interesting thing about this race is that we all see it, well, somewhat differently, but one of the horses that I didn't land on, but I certainly give a lot of consideration to, that really nobody's going to like, because not many people land on a horse that's 30-1 on the morning line, but she fits this profile. And I look a lot at this filly named Chilled. Chilled looks like she's obviously a cut below number 5, the rest of these horses, okay? But she's only had one start on the grass. She's really bred to run on anything, so I'm not, she's not bred necessarily to move up on the grass, but she's bred, to run on anything. She's by Frosted, who was a Tappet out of an Into Mischief mare. They can, in my opinion, that can run on anything. But her one turf race, although it was only an allowance race, she can improve off that and surprise in my opinion, at a big price, and if not win, certainly get into the super, or even the triple, or possibly even the exacta. And she kind of fits that mold of moving up in class and doing something that she's never really been asked to do before. So I don't dismiss her at all from hitting the board. But when it comes to the win, I really wound up torn, and I mean torn, between two horses. And I wound up on one of them because of a slight concern about the other. But the first one that I was torn on was Manushka. I thought Manushka's U.S. debut at Keeneland was extremely impressive. Not as fast as I might have liked it to be, but it was an impressive race. She's got some good back class from France. Brendan Walsh does very well with these type of horses. My thing that swayed me, and it wound up swaying me to the filly that Jim likes, Kehoe Beach, was that race was on Lasix. Now she comes off Lasix. That's a little bit of a question mark, where I do think Jim is right. Kehoe Beach is going to clear, and just maybe a handful to run down in this particular field, even though she's moving into stakes for the first time, because you can't beat what you can't catch. And if she does clear, I think she can be a handful to reel in. But I would definitely, if I bet that race alone, be using Chilled in the numbers behind her at a very, very, very big price, just to hit the board under Luan Machado, who's riding extremely well and getting the most out of all his mounts. It seems like standing up before the wire was the best thing that ever happened to that kid, because it put him on the radar, and he ain't been doing nothing but riding lights out ever since. So he took a lot of heat for that. I think he handled it well, and it certainly hasn't hurt him. That's for sure. So that was my take. I kind of hesitantly land on Kehoe Beach with Jim to maybe wire these up.
I got one comment, John, since you mentioned the philosophy. I, too, at times, if I recognize a horse who wowed me and I feel like they're up and coming, obviously I would land on them as well.
Yeah, no, and I know there's some that you have. I remember that Godolphin horse that we both liked.
It's a race-by-race scenario for me. But in this case, obviously the horse has talent. But when I watched those races, the 7 furlongs at Kentucky Downs was very, very impressive. And then super impressive at Keeneland. To me, the way that filly progressed so rapidly, all right, I think there may be a race that I don't know if she's going to go forward versus these types of fillies who have gone through their battles in grade 2s and grade 3s. And there's also Irad's horse who's been in grade 1s. So that's how I read this. I, too, like to see horses who are developing. And if I feel like they're going to get better, then I'm going to land on them. The reason why I like the 6 to beat the 3 here, I just feel like the last 2 were not only visually impressive, but and now the horse gets a better post. I just think the others have more seasoning, and
they do.
Vulnerable to be here.
They do have more seasoning. I don't think that's even a question. I think that kind of sticks out. They definitely have more seasoning, but pace is a big part of it. And if she clears, she becomes dangerous. And personally, I don't think she really has to go forward. I think she just has to repeat one of her last 2, and that could make her tough to catch. Before we move on to the next race, I want to ask you guys your opinion, because I was on him for a while. I know the filly well. On Buchu, the 2 with Irad, do you think it's a plus or a minus that they're going for less of a purse here, class relief, if you will? I think that horse is going to come too, and nobody times big time closes on the lawn better than Irad. I think that horse is going to come. I just think the horse is going to come short and run 3rd. I would tend to agree with that analysis. I mean, she's definitely got some class. I think she's run with, probably the best of these, certainly, and has not disgraced herself at all. I think, she's definitely a contender. And if Irad times it right, I wouldn't be surprised to see her in the winner's circle at all. She likes Churchill Downs. Phil Bauer's been doing a great job. He really has, kind of under the radar, but really shouldn't be. And is starting to get some recognition now and nice horses. And, lures Irad from Florida where he went early. No, I got no knock on Buchu at all.
Yeah, I'm going to play.
I got no knock on the horse that you picked either, Gio. I think this is a very competitive race. There's not a lot of horses in this race that would surprise me if they wind up winning it.
Yeah. Listen, I'm playing. I don't know if I'm using 3 in my pick 5, but my doubles, my exact, I'm playing 6-3, and I'm playing a 6-2 as well because I feel like Irad's going to have a big run in the stretch with this.
Neither one of you respected the 7 Minushka at all, huh?
No, the 7 made my board. If you remember my precise, I'm 6-3, 2-12-7. So the 7 got some gimmick consideration. Ran wonderfully in France. I think the company was a little better. Came first USA start, closed dramatically. I was visually impressed. I think that horse could go forward, but is going to need a big-time trip in this race.
Yeah, she's fine. I think if anything, she's a class play. Could certainly win. I was just trying to be strong and decisive with the 3.
Okay. All right. I was just curious because neither of you seemed excuse me, too excited about her. Thank you. Okay, the big one, the Clark, grade 2. Used to be a grade 1 for a long time, if memory serves correct.
Yeah.
Not
all that ago either.
600,000 now, so it's an expensive big purse grade 2.
It is. Mile and an 8, Churchill Downs, nice race. What are we doing, Joe? You want to run down the whole field? You could hit lead off with Bowlesy, the 1.
Yeah, we're gonna run down the field. Quick bullet point on each horse, so our viewers know who we're shorting, and of course we'll talk about who we land on and our thoughts. Okay, I'll lead off with Bowlesy. I think Blinkers On is a good move. You got Frankie Dettori, who that last race showed a lot of guts versus Hit Show, who has been just racing tremendously well. It's a nice, hard-hitting guy. But I couldn't land on this guy because the others to me, are just classier, stronger, more imposing type of horses. This guy, his last was his best. And now they're putting a mask on him, blinkers. I don't know if he can go forward off that last race. He was game, but I don't think he can go forward. So I'm not using Bolsey.
Jim?
I really liked this horse, and I saw it, a little differently, than Geo. I thought he can move forward off that last race. I liked how he kind of dug in and came back a little bit on Hit Show when, just after the top of the stretch, Hit Show kind of passed him like Bolsey was standing still, and the horse re-engaged and closed a little bit and made it interesting. The blinkers on, I think, perhaps he got a little, lost a little focus there at the top of the stretch, being alone on the lead for most of the race. And then like I said, I liked how he re-engaged. So I do think he can move forward off of this race. I think it is a big sort of, he's facing tougher company here, but my argument is that outside of Hit Show, and we'll talk about this Most Wanted, I think we know what the rest of these horses are, and coming in off of a career best effort last time out with Bolsey, I like this horse to take another step forward, and I think he's a definite win contender in my view.
Interesting.
I tend to agree with Jim. I think he's a major player in here. He's improving, and I would bet dollars to donuts that Frankie is the one that told Donnie Van Hemel, who's an old-time cowboy, a good trainer, been around a while, one of those Oklahoma, Texas, I don't know where he's from, but he's cowboy 100%. And I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that Frankie's the one who told them, and I don't know this, I'm just speculating, put blinkers on this horse and he'll run a better race. Because I kind of saw that last race like you did. That was the first time he ever really cleared like that, and he might have got a little loafy on the front end. But, if you look at this horse, he's just consistently and slowly gotten better and better and better and better as he's maturing and getting older. And that's very typical of not only Gunrunner, his sire, but the Gunrunners. It's also very typical of the includes. And I think he's a player. I think he gets a good rail trip. I don't think he necessarily needs the lead. He may get it with the blinkers, but I don't think he needs it. But I think Frankie will keep that rail position, have him close in contention, if not on the pace. And I think he's going to have some gas in the tank when it counts. I agree.
One other comment.
Grand Aspen. Oh, go ahead.
One other comment on Bolsey. I need to make this because since you guys were leaning on his competitiveness or contenderness, I felt like the last race took a lot out of him. He went all out. It was his best race of his career. But if you look at his workouts prior to the race, which was his second off a layoff, and then his workouts after the race, preparing for this race, he slowed down. So he used to work much faster. And then his last few workouts, following that big effort, he's working out slower. I don't know.
Astute observation.
Good point.
Yeah.
Astute observation. But, with that, I used to bank a lot on that kind of stuff. And it still does catch my eye. And I'm glad you brought it out. But the one thing that we don't know about those kind of things is the trainer saying, hey, that last race took a lot out of him. Go a little easier with him. He doesn't need to get as much out of his works. He's dead fit. Let's slow him up. Or is it like you're alluding to the possibility that maybe that last race took a lot out of him and he's, maybe going to regress or tail off a little bit from it. But that's something, unless you're out there really watching the works and in the know, it's hard to know for sure. But good observation. Grant Aspen, I'll start with him because I'm going to be quick. He just looks a cut below these to me. I'd say he'd be a major surprise.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that would, maybe make me consider this one is just that Jonathan Thomas is 25% with a second start with trainer, but the body of work is small. It's only 12 races. So what's that? Three wins in 12 tries.
And he comes from Brad Cox and Todd Pletcher. It's not like
right. So
they're exactly
yeah, not for me.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. I'll be very brief. I did like the race at Gulfstream, winning the Grade 3 stakes race, but cut below would be a big surprise. In my opinion, not a 9-furlong horse. Not using.
All right. I'll talk about Krupe first to get it out of the way. Krupe to me is very, very sneaky, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I shouldn't maybe that's a bad choice of words because he's only 4-1 on a morning line. But Krupe, if you remember, he ran second to Arthur's Ride the day Arthur's Ride won the Whitney, and that's the day that they harrowed the track and sped up and souped up the track after the race before the Whitney, made it way, way speed favoring, helped Arthur's Ride get the win. Nobody was closing. The last two races on that card both went wire to wire after that. And this horse made up a ton of ground against a very strong bias. That kind of made him a serious look in the next race. But he caught mud again. And if we can make an excuse for that last race in the mud, when Tapper Trice just decided to show us all what he can do when he's in the mood, I think this horse could be sitting on maybe his best effort to date. They could have run him in the Breeders' Cup Classic. They didn't. They opted for this easier spot here. I think that was a smart move. But, is his best good enough to win this? I don't know. I tend to think it certainly might be. And he's got IRAD. And again, I think there's a good possibility, especially on a fast track, that we could be looking at the peak race for Krupe.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. Mostly because, why wouldn't they run him in the Breeders' Cup Classic? It seemed like a strategic play to put him in this spot and gear him up for this race. That said, I do think that we kind of know what this horse is, and I think he needs to step up a little bit to beat these. I think there's a handful of others that are probably better than him. So wouldn't be shocked if he won, but I don't think I'm going to be using him on any pick 3s or pick 5 tickets.
Okay. My take on Krupe. First of all, good observation, John, regarding the Whitney. I think this horse managed himself in the wet that day and other days, but I think the horse is a better horse on dry surface. Very consistent, hits the board often, 14 for 18 career in the money. Also 8 for 10 at the distance. So I like horses who are proven at 9 furlongs. This is it's a very important consistency that you need to see. It is a curling. However, in this spot, Krupe made my board, is my 4th choice. I feel like he once again will make one big run, but I just feel others are more appealing in this race. So I'm going to use Krupe in my gimmicks and deeper exotics, but not in my wind or exacta end.
Okay. Geo, keep rolling. Paroli.
All right, Paroli. I'll be very quick with this guy. Geldon, Michael McCarthy, great respect for. However, when I went through the entire body work, and most of these older horses, I've watched so many of their races before, so I know them. This guy, I really didn't. But the fact that he's coming off Lasix here, he's run his best races with Lasix. I just think he's overmatched in this race. Even though he's won at the distance, I can't use. I'm tossing him.
Big Race Jim.
Yeah, I thought this horse was a little interesting. I don't know that he's a win contender, but not that I'm much of exacta or trifecta player. But if I was, he'd be one that I would include. Just coming off of that last race, his late pace figure on Brisnet was a 111, which is pretty darn high. So interesting from that regard. We'll talk about it with this next horse too in Most Wanted. Perhaps this pace sets up in Paroli's favor where he can make a nice little late run and get into the money. But yeah, I think he's a little overmatched from a win standpoint.
I agree. I think he is a little bit over his head here. He's to me a cut below these. When he's had his chance against the better horses, he hasn't really gotten it done. So he's got a couple of races I think that make him competitive. His race to Defunded in the Hollywood Gold Cup certainly, would make him competitive here, but not consistent enough, not good enough in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's not really well bet ever. Like, look at these odds that he's gone off at.
And guys, off Lasix, he's challenged.
Yeah, you could tell there's a noticeable difference in his speed figures when he's on it and not on it, for sure.
Geo, keep it rolling with Most Wanted, who I will say this before I talk about him. Love the name. I think his name and Getaway Car are my two favorite names of horses running right now.
Okay, well, this is the most fascinating horse in the race for a number of reasons. A, obviously, a 3-year-old facing older horses. This guy did not run as a juvenile, so I never really liked that. But this year, obviously, how can anybody argue with success? This guy went from Churchill Downs, stayed in Kentucky in debut, went to Ellis Park, and then in that Oklahoma Derby. If you watch the race and you watch it several times, he's a good-looking horse too, very dark, black, like a real stallion-looking horse. However, and by the way, in that race, in the Oklahoma Derby, he had challenges. There was a fight there. If you go back and watch the race, you would think after his 3 wins that maybe he wouldn't get it done there. Over at Rockingham, the Oklahoma Derby. So it is imposing. And to think that Cox, who has a big shot in this race with his other horse, Florent Giroux, is staying with Most Wanted. This is a very important factor because if you look at Hit Show, that's been Florent Giroux's horse, and that horse is in great form. So I feel that this guy, facing older, is going to show up. He's not my top choice. He's my second choice. I think it's going to be a battle in the final 8th, but this guy showed me fight. He's a good horse. He's training well. Even though he didn't race as a juvenile, what he's done at 3, it makes me think there's better days, even more so, ahead of him. It's a big task beating these older seasoned horses. But for all those facts I mentioned, dangerous contender is going to be my second choice.
Big Race Jim.
Yeah, definitely impressive so far. I think all of the ones across the running line in his last 3 starts, might lead many people to believe that he's just going to blast out of there. And and be on the front end. I don't see it that way. I don't think he gets an easy lead. I think this Cook Creek is actually faster than him early. So I think that there might be a little bit of a contested pace up front. But yeah, I mean, he's been good. Certainly would not be shocked if he wins. To Geo's point, I do think this is a noticeable step up in competition, and perhaps he's just better than these as a 3-year-old, which would be fun to see. Definitely a strong win contender, but ultimately not the one that I landed on.
Interesting. I think you bring out a good point, Geo, in Flo, who is tied in very well with Cox's barn, sticking here over Hit Show, who's likely the favorite, and the horse most people are going to say is the horse to beat. I agree with everything that both of you said. Only I probably rate him a little bit higher because I kind of discount the 3-year-old factor because we're racing on November 28th. He's a month away from being 4, at least according to the record books. He's a March foal, so he's not a late foal. So I think 3-year-olds this time of year almost have an edge against some of those older horses, and he gets a little bit of a weight break because of that. He's 4 for 4. I don't think he needs the lead. I think he could sit a very, very nice trip. He's the other Cox. You guys know how much I like the guys, whether it's Baffert, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, Brad Cox. I always like the guy's other horse, and always consider that. And they win as much as they lose, so it's definitely a tried and true angle. I think he's a major player, and I'm hard pressed not to make him my top choice. And for everything that you guys said, I agree with and are all on my checklist. But the one thing I'll add that you guys didn't mention is that everybody else in this race, every other one, we kind of know who they are. We kind of know what they are. Hit Show included. None of them are all that and a bag of chips, in my opinion. None of them were good enough to contest the Classic. This guy, I think the Classic wasn't even a consideration. I think this was the race that they were going for. I don't think he's stepping up into as deep waters as he could be running in the Clark against Alder. I think this is a relatively light Clark, probably diluted because of the Breeders' Cup Classic, and I don't think it's as much as a step up as it may appear to be on paper. So I'm hard pressed not to say Most Wanted is not my top choice. I'm inclined to say that he is. And there's that. Hit Show. You want me to continue and roll with Hit Show?
Yeah, keep going.
Hit Show is a horse. I try not to get caught up in biases, and I always tell people, don't get biased. Don't let that cloud your judgment. Don't not bet a horse because you think the trainer stinks, because any given Sunday, anything could happen. I've always thought Hit Show was a little bit overrated, even on his best races. He always looked like he had potential, always looked like he was on everybody's radar, and to me, always was a cut below the better ones. And I think that'll show on Friday where he's a beaten favorite. I think he's vulnerable. I don't think he's that much better than any of these horses. He does like Churchill Downs. He did manage to build up a 7 for 14 record, which is half his starts. Primarily, I think, because Brad Cox is brilliant at spotting his horses in good spots. But I just think he's not quite as good as people think he is. And I would have to venture to guess that Florent Giroux agrees with me. So I think he's vulnerable as the favorite. I'm gonna take a shot against him, and I hope everybody and their sister lands on him.
All right. Interesting, John, because obviously the point I made with Cox, and Florent Giroux going to Most Wanted off a horse that he's ridden so many times. Now, Hit Show is not my top choice, but is at the bottom of my triple. And this is a triple. I'm probably going to play a robust Sette triple and will be used in my exotics, in my exacta 2, under my top choice. So, Hit Show, never been better. If you look at his last 3, consistent, reliable. He's one of the better horses in training at 1 1/8. I characterize him with a horse like Skippy Longstocking, who really gravitates and does really well at 1 1/8. He is 4 for 8, 5 times exacta. Gaffleone is new on him. A threat, even though he's never been better, and he's really good at 9 furlongs. I have him as a contender, but underneath my top 2, I'm going to use him in exactas, but I'm only using 2 in my pick 5. And my double, I'm using my top choice to defeat Most Wanted. We'll get to him soon.
Okay.
Florent Giroux, huge fan of Past the Wire. I was talking to him at the Breeders' Cup in the hotel, and he had nothing but great things to say about John and the channel, and he's been a guest on here a couple of times. So shout out.
Yeah, no,
we like Flo the Jock.
Flo the Jock, definitely, man. I sat right behind his wife at the Breeders' Cup. She was in the box right in front of me. I was surrounded. I had, I know no stories. I had Flo's wife right in front of me. I had Safi Joseph right next to me, and I had Ron Anderson, agent to everybody who won, right behind me. So we were in front of Ron Anderson. We know we're in a good spot. When Safi Joseph, Soul of an Angel?
Yeah.
When she won, everybody jumped up screaming. Everybody in that box knocked over their chair. No chairs were standing up. Every chair went down. The whole thing. If it was a heavyweight fight, down goes Frazier. Every chair in the box went down. So, okay.
I think Hit Show is running for older horse of the year honors here. I think if he wins,
wow.
Who else? Who else are you going to give it to? 4 wins in a row.
Good point.
I think a win in the Clark bolsters his resume and makes him a top candidate for older horse of the year this year, where that division has just been,
Well, who would he have to beat? Who are the contenders?
Who is it? Arthur's Ride, Newgate, Senor Buscador.
Yeah, really. No,
I mean, all those,
I would say
Newgate was probably in the best form.
National Treasure, maybe the best of the
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Anyway, I just, what do they call it? A hot take for me. Hit Show wins this. He should win older horse of the year.
That's a good observation.
That said, I don't think he's going to win. I think he is going to be, making a nice solid run down the lane, and will be in the mix late. But, I do think he's just, we know what he is. He's been able to beat up on some lesser competition. And there's another horse that we're going to talk about here in the next couple that I think is going to get up at the wire and beat him. But, he's going to go favorite. I think he'll probably be a little bit over bet, him and Most Wanted, likely the top 2 choices. just looking for a little value elsewhere in a horse that I think is going to be doing the best running late and get him at the wire.
Hit show.
Gotta love that graphic.
Hit show.
I want to lead with rattle and roll.
Most wanted. All right. Next horse.
I'm
Gio,
going
I'm going to let you go first on this one, but this is a very dangerous horse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got to lead with rattle and roll because I'm excited about this horse.
I don't blame you. Go ahead.
This is my top choice, and I'm going to make several bullet points here.
I can't argue any of them. I can tell you that already going in. So
first things first, this horse had a wonderful 4-year-old campaign. Just a wonderful 4-year-old campaign. His last, drawn a slop at Churchill, was his first race off a very, very long layoff. You don't see many layoffs like that with horses of this caliber. I thought they were going to race him in the Breeders' Cup. He did not. So now Ken McPeak, BJ Hernandez aimed for the Clark. All right? I don't have any reservations that the horse loves Churchill Downs. I love the way he's training. 7 for 8 in the money at Churchill. But more importantly, if you combine all of his efforts at 4, then that long layoff comes back running. Granted, he did lose to Hit Show and Cookie Creek, but I just think this race sets up perfectly for him. I think there'll be enough pace. I see him in. By the way, if you look at his workouts, Jim, show the workouts to the viewers. This horse is a horse that's demonstrating to me that he is fresh, fit, and ready to go. I see him running them all down in the stretch. My top choice. I am going to use him in my doubles. And I am playing a robust triple with the 7 over the 5 and the 6. Most Wanted and Hit Show. And if that happens, Mr. Sette's getting paid. But top choice, number 7, rattle and roll.
Let me add something because I always say that, tips and information at the racetrack is bullshit. And let me clarify that. It is, but not certain kinds of information. And the kind of information I will share here, I think is valuable. And you alluded to it. I was talking to the owners of this horse out at the Breeders' Cup one morning while Jim and I were scouting through the barns. And I don't know where Jim was. He was not with me, but I was by myself. It might have been Friday morning when I was out by myself, and I ran into the owners of this horse at Ken McPeak's barn, and I wished them good luck, and they were like, "Yeah, thank you very much. We're just hoping to get in, man. We just got to get in." They were on the alsos, trying to get in to the Classic, so they were there, intending to run. The horse was on the grounds. They liked his chances. They were just hoping to get in. That's not the same as, oh, I love my horse, bet my horse, here's a tip on my horse, we're going to win some maiden special race at Saratoga when everybody likes their horse. This is a little different kind of information. They were there to run, and they thought they had a shot. They weren't ducking the Breeders' Cup Classic by any means. They thought they were ready off that one race, which I think bodes well for him in this spot. You know what I mean? So they just couldn't get into the Classic. So with that, I'll just sum up on rattle and roll, top contender. The reason I leaned a little to Most Wanted over him was I'm just a little concerned that one race might not quite be enough to get him over the hump here. But if I'm wrong, it will not surprise me. I think he's definitely right there in the mix. Big Race Jim.
Yeah, question for both of you, mostly coming off of John's comment there. Is it not a little concerning that they weren't exactly pointing for the Clark and they were trying to run in the Classic and they shipped all the way out to California, had him out there for a week or so, and then they shipped him back to Churchill to get him ready for this spot?
I'm gonna say no. You know, that's a case by case question and a trainer by trainer question, but I think Ken McPeak is sharp enough to know that they might not get in. I think he had his horse ready, and I don't think there was a lot to do to keep him on edge for a couple of weeks. What is it, 2 weeks, whatever, 3 weeks, whatever, since the Breeders' Cup. I don't think it's a lot to keep him on edge and ready to go. And I think, if anything, in his case, it might help him, because I was worried about the one race fitness for a race like the Breeders' Cup. Now he's got some extra time. And you know, that may do him some good. You know what I mean? That may actually do him some good.
Yeah. And guys, his works are really, like I mentioned. And look at his last work. It was a couple days ago.
Yeah, I mean, that extra work might make all the difference in the world come Friday.
Yeah. I don't know. He wasn't for me.
Okay, he could turn Black Friday into green. He could turn Black Friday into Green Friday for Sette.
Yeah. Yes.
Red Route 1. Geo, take Red Route 1.
Okay, Red Route 1, you know, from the very beginning, during his 3-year-old campaign, you know, I liked him because he was a gun runner, and I just felt like he always had the potential to be a big-time stretch runner. He has won 4 of 7 at 1 1/8. And again, that's very, very important to me. So just on that note, and the fact that I trust Stephen Asmussen, I felt he was a contender in this race, especially if there was a lightning pace or a moderate to fast pace. Definitely pace dependent, will come running. I look at him as a solid grade 2 horse. His last was nice. I like that he's versatile. He's won over different surfaces at different tracks. I just couldn't land on him. And I'm not going to use him in my multiples, but I will use him in my deeper gimmicks like a superfecta. The top 3 I mentioned, he will be my 4th horse. He's my 4th choice. Certainly going to use him in the bottom end of my supers. I just don't know if he's good enough to win in this spot.
Big Race Jim.
Red Route 1 is my top choice. I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Geo, on the pace dependent thing. One of the reasons why I really like the Brisnets is that they give you this extra figure that kind of lets you know how the first half of the race and the second half of the race was relative to the average. And his last couple of races, his last 3 races, those races have all been slower than average early and slower than average late, and he's still closed. I think if you look at the company that he's kept this year, almost all of these horses that have beat him would be favored in here. Skippy Longstocking, Highland Falls, Kings Barnes, all of these horses that he's represented himself well against and has closed well against into some slow paces. All of those horses, I think, would be favored, if not second choice in here. If you're going to give me 8-1 on Red Route 1 in a race where I see a pace is going to be not blazing fast, but a little quicker than what he's seen in his last 3, I think that sets up pretty well for him, and he'll be able to close into it. And I think he gets up over a hit show or a rattle and roll or a ballsy and gets the money in here.
Interesting. I thought he was a horse that really needed things to go perfect for him in order to win a race like this. And I see a couple of races against horses that, I don't know, 2 Rivers Down, Money Supply just lost the other day as a heavy favorite in a conditioned starter handicap race or something like that. So I don't know that I agree on the class level with him. He's capable of a big race and a big run from off the pace on his best day, but again, I think he needs it perfect and the right setup. And I have called him right a couple of times when he's won. I think I liked him a lot when he won at the fairgrounds in the New Orleans handicap, but I'm kind of against him here.
And one other point on Red Route 1, I think it's important to bring up. Hasn't won at Churchill, 0 for 2, but I've watched this guy with Rosario. Remember, Rosario's a very aggressive, strong-arm closer. I think he's better with Rosario. Now Torres has taken him. He did win his last, but that was a weaker field. And that's why, to me, nice horse will come running bottom gimmicks.
Okay. Cook Creek, Geo.
All right, Cook Creek. My boy Luis Saez is on him. And it's also another amazing claim from Mike Maker. I don't know how Mike Maker does it, but he just habitually claims horses and then runs them for bigger purses and wins. So I like the horse. He's a hard hitter. I like horses that got, gouillons. There's no doubt he'll be speedy in this race with Saez up. Second time Louise. He'll be on or near the lead. Tough post. Has won at 9 furlongs. However, as much as I like what Maker does and I love Louise, to me, it's a big time step up to pull off an upset here. Would I be surprised if the horse lasted for a share because the way Louise takes his mount all the way to the wire? Yeah, he could run fourth. So I'd be using him in some of my superfectors, but it would be a surprise to me if he pull off an upset. And if he does, my hat's off to Mike Maker again.
Well, he did run Hit Show to a neck and beat Rattle and Roll last time out. So,
but Rattle and Roll was on a year layoff.
True. Big Race Jim.
Yeah, I think this horse will be the pace setter. I think he'll be able to clear, and if he doesn't, I think his race is probably over. And if he does, I think it's just going to be too much to ask for him to take them all the way around, especially with Most Wanted probably right up there as well. To Gio's point, like Maker does get these horses and then they run well the first couple times in his barn. And then I don't have the numbers in front of me to back this up, but it does feel like they run well, the first 2-3 times, and then they start to decline a little bit. So I'm banking on that. The pace dynamics, I don't think necessarily favor this one. So I'm not going to be including Cook Creek on Friday.
All right. I'm a little against him myself. I respect Mike Maker and what he does with these claims. And every time he wins and I don't bet him, I always say, you know what? I'm never going to let this guy beat me with one of these horses again. But at the end of the day, I shouldn't say that because I don't bet that way. I call each race the way I see that particular race. And I just think Cook Creek is nice, improving for Maker, but couple of some of these, and I don't know that I agree with Jim on the pace. I think Most Wanted might actually get the lead and just go on with it and take this guy right out of his game. Uno Mas Bourbon, Mr. Sette. Any chance?
Okay, yeah. Listen, I'll be brief. Ian Wilkes, always appreciate his work. Definitely a cut below. There's 2 for 2 at the distance. I like the way this great colt is built. However, facing all the horses in this spot from that post, just can't use. He'd be a big surprise. tossing them.
Big Race Jim?
Yeah, same. I don't see it. Would be pretty surprised. What's this? Looking at the workouts, what track is that he's working over?
That's that Sky. What the heck? It's near Churchill Downs. It's some training center.
It's like a training center. Okay.
It's a training track.
All right.
Synthetic.
Yes.
So shout out to the Louisiana Downs Super Derby. Been there for that, so that's cool. So good for him. But yeah, I don't see this one winning.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So, in summary, Geo is on Rattle and Roll. I was on Most Wanted, and Jim is on. Who are you on again, Jim?
Red Route 1.
Red Route 1. I apologize. So
Yeah,
there you have it. Three different opinions.
Yeah, for those that like my precise, I'm 7.5638. 7.5638.
3-8. Geo's precise order of finish.
That's it.
All right. Yeah, the ones I probably respect the most under Most Wanted are Croupy and Rattle and Roll. And even I'm hard pressed to toss the one Bowlesy, who we talked about. I think he's a player.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely include Bowlesy and Red Route 1 on my multi-race tickets. Probably throw in Hit Show too, and probably use those three.
All right.
It should be a fun race to watch.
Absolutely. And at the end of the year, we got some big races coming up. We got the Cigar Mile, and that day coming up, the Remsen, which is always a great race. That's the race that Sierra Leone and
Dornock.
Who was it? Dornock kind of threw down. We got the Malibu and La Brea grade ones at Santa Anita, I think, coming up when they open up right around Christmas time. So all is not lost. And then we go right into the, Santa Anita Winter Meet, the Gulfstream Park Winter Meet. You got Oaklawn Park running, Fairgrounds, nice strong meet. So plenty of good racing coming up, plenty of good action on Tracking Trips, plenty of good action on Past the Wire TV and PastTheWire.com. So Breeders' Cup is over, but plenty of stuff happening, guys.
We will be in action. And by the way, I have to say this to everybody because Thanksgiving is on the horizon. Little SETI thought for Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, but most importantly, always embrace and value with a sense of gratitude all the good things you have in your life. Never take them for granted because one day you may not have them. So embrace the good things and forget the rest of things that really don't matter.
Absolutely. Well said. And to all our Past the Wire family out there and all of your loved ones and all of your peeps, have a happy, healthy, wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you for the support. Thank you for riding with us. And ciao for now, everybody.
Let's go.
Tracking Trips at Past the Wire, your second set of eyes in horse racing.
Solo Mini,
Be a
a
member.
top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner, Winstock, and Stakes winner, Solo Shot. Solo Mini, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solomini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin. standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds.
Breed the best, and hope for the best.
Vekoma broke well on the outside.
But you don't expect to get speed like this.
It is Vekoma, the one to catch. Vekoma has a 5-length lead in this Grade 1 corner. Outside, Vekoma continues the battle on down at the rail. It is Vekoma who's going to win the Met Mile.
Nobody does it better.